I want to talk about what the Sinner ban mean for the sport, and I feel like there has been a lot of surprising results over both the ATP and the WTA tour. I feel like this season is symbolic of a lot of players who've played the sport for a long time finally just getting their moment. Maybe they're bothered by injuries the years before where they just never had like a breakthrough tournament despite making it far in big tournaments, but I feel like this is their year. Welcome tennis fans to Tennis Traverse, Exploring the Game, the podcast that delves into the heart of the tennis world. I'm your host Ivy Zhang, and in today's episode I will be talking about the different tennis tournaments that's going on right now, and then I'll move on in part 2 to talk about the Sinner ban. So yeah, let's just get right into today's episode. So I want to start off talking about the ATP side, and I want to put a finish onto last week's episode because I ended the episode saying that the finals will be between Ruud and Shapovalov, which already happened, but I still want to give my input on the match just because I feel like there's some interesting things to talk about. Shapovalov has suffered a lot of setbacks, and I feel like a lot of things with him is mental. Like, for example, he's really he can get triggered very easily just by his opponents, and I think when he's on, he's able to beat a lot of great players like Casper Ruud, and I think this final was sort of a testament to that. And I think for many of these players, like John Fonseca, I don't want to necessarily put Fonseca and Shapovalov into one group though, but I think I would just say that these are players who are challenging some of the top ranked players. So I will put Shapovalov, Fonseca, Lerner Tien maybe in the group, as well as just Arnaldi, Musetti. I think these are all players that really have a chance of beating players such as, and Tommy Paul, I would say, I'll put him into that group too, but I think these are just players who have a chance of beating top 10 players such as Casper Ruud, Medvedev, Andrei Rublev. I feel like it's really different. I feel like there's a distinct line between Novak Djokovic, Carlos Alcaraz, Jannik Sinner compared to the rest of the top 10 players. I think a lot of players are getting really close to beating the rest of the top 10 players, and I think Shapovalov is a symbol for that because he was able to beat Ruud, I'd say, pretty handedly in 2 straight sets, even though it was a tight score. But I think just coming back and beating Ruud is showing how much that it's I wouldn't want to say relatively easy, but they have a chance of challenging these top 10 players who are ranked in the lower half, I'd say. And I think especially at the Grand Slams, this will be really interesting because at Australian Open, we saw Fonseca beating Rublev in the first round, and we also saw Jakub Mensik beating Casper Ruud. I think there's just a lot of different things that's going on, and I'm really interested to see how it will play into Roland Garros because I feel like it's so open because Roland Garros isn't Sinner's best surface, and there's just a lot of unknown factors. So I think that will be an interesting tournament, and I can't wait for it. Okay, now let's move on to Argentina Open. So the reason why I mentioned John Fonseca is because I feel like a lot of people might think that he only beat Andrei Rublev, and he might not have and he lost to Arnaldi, in Australia in the second round. And a lot of people might think that he needs more experience to make it to the final. But I think this Argentina Open in Buenos Aires really showed that he have a chance of making it to the finals. And this was his breakthrough tournament last year. And I think, yeah, let me just talk about this entire tournament. So this is an ATP 250, and after the Australian Open, there's like two sort of sets of tournaments. One set is played on clay, which prepares you for the Roland Garros tournament, the French Open, and another set of tournaments, such as like the Delray Beach Open, the Dallas Open, is played on hard courts. So you can choose between these two tournaments. So for example, Casper Ruud, who's I think want to get more hardcore practices, chose to play in Dallas, and other players like Musetti, I think he really wants to make a breakthrough at Roland Garros this year, so he chose to play in a clay court swing. So it's really up to the players, and Fonseca chose to play in a clay court swing. And I don't want to speculate, but I think he wants more experience on a clay court, and because this was his breakthrough tournament last year, he loves to vibes there, and I think that's why he chose to play here. But yeah, I think he lived up to all expectations. There are some pretty difficult players in this draw who like really had like I feel like surprising results, but I do want to talk first about Diego Schwartzman, who is officially retired, and this was his last tournament. I mean, the round of 32 match against Nicolas Jarry was an amazing one. He survived, but barely survived. I'll leave a link for you guys if you guys want to watch it below, but yeah, it was just incredible. And then I also want to let's talk about Fonseca. So in the round of 32, Fonseca beat Echeverry, which is such an amazing player. And I feel like this is also a testament to how Fonseca is capable of beating a lot of players who's from Argentina, because this tournament is held in Argentina, and a lot of players, especially when he's playing against an Argentinian player, is not going to be cheering for him. They're going to be cheering for of course the player from Argentina. And however, I think this really shows that he's able to beat Argentinian players to advance, because after the round of 32, in the round of 16, he played Coria, and he beat Coria in 3 sets. And in the quarterfinals, he played against Navone, and he beat Navone as well. So 3 Argentinian players in a row. And then he made it to the final, and his next opponent will be Cerundolo, who I think had an incredible tournament. He beat Zverev in the quarterfinal, which is surprising, but I don't want to speak too early, because I feel like a lot of people considered Zverev the favorite going to Roland Garros to win the title. And I know that this result is surprising, and maybe people will rule him out, but I don't think this means anything, because there's still so many tournaments that's much more like worth more points before Roland Garros. I think this is just his warm-up tournament. And yeah, but I don't want to read too much into it, but I mean, it could be a sign that maybe Zverev won't perform as well in Roland Garros. Okay. And for the final, which will be taking place today, so by the time my episode comes out, you guys will know the result. I'm going to predict Cerundolo is going to win, but to be honest, I want Fonseca to win, because I think he's such a talent, and winning a tournament for him will be such a confidence boost. And just going into just the entire, if he plays in the American swing, I feel like he's going to get so much recognition, and I think that's good for him. But yeah, I think Cerundolo will win just because of how good his form is. But I mean, Fonseca is in pretty good forms as well. So I'm really interested in this matchup. Okay, now I want to shift gears and talk about Delray Beach. So this was Taylor Fritz's defending tournament for 2 years in a row. And I sort of mentioned this I think in last week's episode, of how Taylor Fritz is not really having the season he would have liked. He's been having a lot of just random little bumps. Like, for example, I feel like he's been, like, all of his tournaments is just him beating some players pretty handedly. And then when he faced another like tougher player, it just suddenly switches and he's not able to keep up with them, or it's like just a tight match. So my example is going to be in the quarterfinals. So in the quarterfinals, Taylor Fritz played against Alexander Davidovich Fokina, and obviously incredible players. He later made it to the final, but it was just two really tight sets. And I think players need to play these tight moments to win them, and it's impossible to stimulate them in a practice setting, because even if you're practicing with another top player, it's still really hard to make sure that, I don't want to say make sure, but to like feel the pressure under these tight moments. And I think this is just a symbol for that. And yeah, but the final will also be taking place today, and it will be between Davidovich Fokina and Mimor Kecmanovic. And yeah, I think Fokina really deserves a title, and I hope he gets it. Okay, we'll take a little break and we'll move on to talk about the Qatar Open, which is for the WTA Tour. Okay, so for the women's side, we really have an interesting tournament, which is the Doha Open, which is a WTA 1000 event, and that concluded Saturday, which was yesterday, and there were some pretty interesting results, to say the least. And yeah, I can't wait to talk about it with you guys. So I want to start off by talking just about some surprises that happened. I think the most significant one will be obviously Aryna Sabalenka losing, which I will cover later, but I do want to mention Leylah Fernandez beating Emma Navarro with the score of 6-2, 6-2. That's pretty handedly, and that was pretty interesting to me because it's such like an easy score. And I know Emma Navarro, who really likes to fight back after if she's stunned, like she lost the first set, she really enjoys playing a 3-set match because she has a really good physical, like a mental mentality, and she like really enjoys playing a 3-set match, unlike some players who just wanted to get it over with. But yeah, I mean, what can I say? It was just like a dominating performance from Leylah. And then I want to talk about Badosa losing to Anisimova. I mean, at that time it was interesting because Badosa beat Coco Gauff, came out of the in the Australian Open, and this was surprising, but Anisimova became the champion. So I feel like when I will talk about Anisimova later, but when she's on, especially her return game, she's able to just hit winners right off of people's serves. Perhaps the most surprising one, Aryna Sabalenka losing to Ekaterina Alexandrova. And it's really interesting because the last set was a deciding tiebreak and she lost 5-7, which I don't think is something... I feel like she doesn't struggle that much with tight games anymore. I feel like she normally comes out on top, but I feel like she's been struggling, and this is her like 2 games lost in a row, which isn't that big of a deal, but I don't know what happened. I think she tightened up, and yeah, it was just... I feel like she's obviously going to come back and just play because I just love her mindset. I think she's really chill, and every time she loses it, she uses it as an opportunity to come back. And I think because with like the US swing coming up, I think that's where she should focus her attention onto. I think just getting like a hardcore champion in Indian Wells or Miami will really just boost her confidence and make her keep up her number 1 spot. And Coco Gauff losing to Marta Kostyuk, I mean, this is almost equally as surprising, but I think both of these players really are trying to focus on the US swing that's coming up, because with Miami and Indian Wells, especially Coco, because a lot more people will be cheering for Coco. And yeah, and then we're just gonna fast forward, and I want to talk about the semifinals between Ostapenko and Świątek, because what is that? It was insane because when this was like a matchup that Ostapenko had like a 4-0 lead over Świątek, and coming in, I really thought that Świątek was going to beat Ostapenko maybe in 3 sets because Doha, Schwartzman loves Doha, and because of how windy it is, her spin really just gives her an advantage. But this match was just nothing like it. Ostapenko destroyed Świątek in 2 straight sets with a score of 6-3, 6-1, and there was literally nothing Świątek could do because every time she'd serve, it's like the spin just didn't exist. And you know how Ostapenko is when she's on, because she always play ball with such a fine margin. Like, she places the ball almost like right next to the line or sometimes even on the line. And because of how fine of a margin she is, when she misses it, when she's not at her best, she's going to lose a match. But when she's at her best and winning so many matches before this, she's going to basically blast her opponent off the court. And the ego spin just did not work at all. I'll leave a link for you guys if you guys want to check out this matchup because it was insane. Like, Ostapenko would just hit winners and just such dominant shots off of Iga's first serve, which is something I think Iga will need to work on. However, when Ostapenko played against Anisimova, I think Anisimova basically did the same thing that Ostapenko did to Świątek, which is returning with such precision. And I think Ostapenko was just not like how she was when she played against Iga, but I don't want to take anything away from Amanda. I think they both played amazing, but Amanda just had a better return game, and I think that's how she won this match. And I also want to mention Ostapenko's double faults. She had 10 double faults, and I think that's a pretty high a pretty high number. I think she really needs to fix her serve. She's had some pretty big serve mishaps throughout her career, but she always managed to fix those. But I think she needs to continue to work on her serve, because if she can perfect her serve and eliminate the amount of double faults, sort of like Coco, I think she's going to have a pretty successful season, because she came into this final with beating Iga Świątek, even though she had that many double faults. Even though she only had 4 double faults when she played against Iga, I think with the combination of nerves, the double faults number is about to go up. And that's basically today's episode, and I want to now move on to the Sinner ban. So I'll be right back. So for the Sinner ban, I want to start off by just telling you guys the results, and I will leave a link for you guys so you guys can check out the article yourself, and then I'll give my opinion. So Sinner is banned 3 months starting today, which means that he will miss the US swing, but he's still going to compete in Roland Garros. So WADA, which is the the doping organization, appealed Sinner with no sentencing. So now I want to tell you guys what WADA said. So it said, WADA accept athlete's explanation for the cause of the violation as outlined in the first instance decision. WADA accepts that Mr. Sinner did not intend to cheat, and that his exposure to Clustable did not provide any performance-enhancing benefit that took place without his knowledge as a result of negligence of members of his entourage. So this means that he basically wasn't at fault. However, there's more. Under the code and by virtue of the CAS precedent, an athlete bears responsibility for the entourage's negligence. Based on the unique set of facts of this case, a 3-month suspension is deemed to be an appropriate outcome. As previously stated, WADA did not seek a disqualification of any results, save that which was previously imposed by the Tribunal of First Instance. So that just basically means that he's going to be suspended for 3 months, and he accepts the ban. And I mean, whatever this is, he's probably going to put it past him, because Sinner will lose 1,600 points, which means that if Zverev wins several titles while Sinner is out, he could take over the number 1 ranking. But for me, I feel like it's highly unlikely. And I want to say that this was, I really think that did a great job on handling the situation, and I truly don't think it's his fault that this happened. And I agree for him to serve a ban which don't affect his Grand Slam performance, because he still can play the French Open. And I was talking to my mom about this, and my mom asked what Iga wasn't banned, and in my interpretation it's because Sinner hired the athletic trainer who put the cream which had the cholesterol on his body. But for Iga's case, it's because of the melatonin that she was taking, and the whole batch was like just not a great batch, and it's not her that like made the decision, it's actually the company who manufactured it, so it's not her fault, and that's why she isn't suspended. I think that's how it goes, but I'm not sure. So if you guys know anything about this, please let me know. But yeah, that's my thoughts on it, and that basically ends up today's episode. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I'm recording this on a Sunday because I just hanged out with my friends yesterday, and it was a lot of fun, and I hope you guys are enjoying your 2025 as well. And yeah, that's all. I hope you guys liked my episode. If you haven't subscribed to my social medias, you should. It's Tennis Traverse. That is Tennis Traverse on Instagram and Twitter. If you're listening on YouTube, comment, like, and subscribe. If you're listening on other streaming platforms, please rate my show. And that's all for today. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.